much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Hey folks, welcome Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. All right, I'm just going to roll into this video. I'm going to deal with this first before we have the spokesperson for Donald Trump come on, Liz Harrington. We're going to talk about latest on FBI corruption, what happened in the Pence house the other day, and more about the campaign. And I got some of your questions. I saw some of your questions on Twitter and elsewhere, and I will definitely weave them into the interview. Let's just play this clip from Fox News. All right. I can't ignore this issue because to my knowledge, because I think Gallup stopped, to my knowledge, we are the only polling firm who annually asks Americans their views about UFOs or UAPs, whatever you want to call it. And we have a series of questions, which we'll revisit here in the first half. But this is why, I would ignore it if it wasn't for that. But I'm going to bring it up because it will impact public opinion, for better or for worse, depending on where you stand on this issue. But here is a clip from Fox News I want to run because apparently there have been numerous objects. Now, funny, folks, let me just get this out of the way. I find it a little hard to believe that since the 1940s and like the infamous Roswell incident, the United States government has done everything in their power not to talk about this issue until, speaking of President Trump, until the Trump administration when ATIP became public and known because Lou Elizondo, he walked out in protest to be able to get this information public. But since ATIP and those sightings, there's something very, I just have a hard time believing, very skeptical, that all of a sudden disclosure is going to come after they botched handling Chinese spy balloons. And it became common knowledge that the U.S. committed an illegal act of war against Russia, and on and on and on. And all of these happenings that really cannot be answered for. FBI corruption is one of them, which we're going to talk to Liz Harrington about in a bit. Let's roll the clip and then we'll talk more about
this. This is for General Van Herk. Because you still haven't been able to tell us what these things are that we are shooting out of the sky, that raises the question, have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials? And if so, why? Because that is what everyone is asking us right now.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Helene. I'll let the intel community and the counterintelligence community figure that out. I haven't ruled out anything at this point. We continue to assess every threat or potential threat unknown that approaches North America with an attempt to identify.
All right, so that's General Van Herk, Glenn Van Herk, during a phone press conference. And I know Matt Rosendale, representative from Montana, has been in contact with him and others trying to find out what's going on. And it does appear, that there was a physical object, so they're claiming, all right, on and on, right, with this stuff. I actually find it a little sad because for those of you who know, I take this issue actually really seriously. And I think it's sad that it's being used like this. And I think it's sad that people like Sagar and others I have a good deal of respect for. I mean, Sagar, you're being played, man. I mean, they're playing you over this. I wish this was the case, but they're not going to tell you if they shoot down an alien spaceship. And number one, who the hell says we could shoot them down if we wanted to? And this is something that really is unexplainable. When you look at all those cases with ATIP and others, there have been a lot more than what you have been led to believe with the reports that were released with ATIP. something stands out. Pilots, male, female, long-term veterans, newer pilots. It doesn't matter. All very credible. It doesn't matter what differences these pilots may have. They are all very unanimous in saying, I've never seen anything like that before. And I don't think, like with the Nimitz, the commander of that squadron, that didn't come from planet Earth. We did not manufacture that. Or whatever. It's not the Russians. It's not the Chinese. It didn't come from planet Earth. The fact that these pilots are kind of like on the fence, oh, I don't know what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, they have seen everything in the sky. They know what something is or isn't. And the fact that some are saying, oh, they look like an alien spaceship, and then others are saying, I don't know. The equivocation is a red flag. Big time. Because there have been so many reports from the Nimitz, the Roosevelt, a lot of them, and they all always say, without equivocating, that this is not something from this world. That's what they will say if you talk to them. The fact that they're not now is telling. All right. Anyway, let's look at last year. And I mentioned we're the only polling firm that does this. As far as I know, I think that's the case. I think Gallup no longer does it. All right. So again, I think it's sad because public opinion will be affected by these reports. And I'm not sure if you're like a ufologist or an enthusiast and you've been waiting for disclosure or some level of information to come to light that you feel is being kept, and you want people to take it more seriously. Like Christopher Mellon is from like intelligence royalty. He simply is like, there's something in our sky. We don't know what it is. We have to know what it is. To use this as like a false flag event or something really shows how unserious we are. And like I've said a million times, I'm not sure you can shoot it down. There have been pilots who try to engage these things and they make fools of them. So anyone who has ever spoken or looked at this will tell you it would be odd to be able to take this thing out of the sky. All right. They can travel between the stars. If that's an alien's race, then that means they can travel between stars, to and from different stars. A friggin' U.S. Air Force or naval pilot is not going to shoot them out of the sky. I mean, it's ridiculous on its face. All right. But anyway, last year, is it almost time to do this again? Oh, I want to get the cultural stuff done first. I really do. So I kind of hope not. But it may be. I thought it was in the spring. Let's see. I'd have to go into Market Site from the public front-facing part of this, the version of this URL. It doesn't give you all the information that I see here, which would have been date and everything. But you know what? I can look real easy. It was May of 2022. All right. And the last one in 2021, I believe was, May 17th, 2021. And then this one that you're looking at now was released on May 24th, 2022. So it's not quite time. February, March. Yeah. It's not, it's a couple months away. Next quarter, maybe we'll do one. But 2022 wasn't a big change. There was a marginal change. It was 2021 that had a pretty big impact over the prior time we surveyed Americans on their views. So in 2021, 18% of voters claim to have personally witnessed a UFO, which was up 6% since the prior survey. 20% said in 21 that they know someone who sincerely believes that they have. And 59% say that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe. 62% say that the U.S. government knows more than they are telling people. All right, so in 2022, it was a marginal change, all right? At least some can be attributed to extraterrestrial intelligence. Visiting the Earth is what they told us last year, if we look at sightings in general. So we're looking at a marginal increase of 1 point, all right? Which was interesting because from 21 to 22, the number of people who self-identified as a Republican and/or a conservative increased. So you would think if the media was right, that, you know, conservatives are like backwards and evangelicals are backwards. If that was true, and Christians in general, believers, are backwards, if that was true, then we wouldn't see the numbers that we see. All right, because that isn't really what we see when we look inside the numbers. Get it? Inside the numbers. Actually, for those of you, because I saw that, I'm coming. Hold on. Oh wow, Laura, I forgot to put it on locals. Can you put it on locals for me? I can't believe I didn't do that. Getter, coming to you. Rumble, coming to you. YouTube, coming to you. You guys can take a look at all this if you want. Yeah, Marvin, I'm kind of on the mind. I'm with you that if there is something to disclose, I don't think they would disclose it at all until they have no damn choice, Marvin. Like, you know, I mean, the fact of the matter is, an M-Band, that was funny. He says the car-size-like object is rumored to be Elon Musk's car returning from space. Yeah, I mean, this is how unserious they're making this, as if all of a sudden, after all of these years, they would just be this open and tell us, right? There have been many, many, many interactions with craft, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, with the military. There is it's not new, it's not really out yet, but the strike force or task force that was supporting the actions in Syria that former President Trump took on chemical weapons targets. They had interactions with them during the Iraq, it's not the invasion, beyond the invasion, but the Gulf operations from Iraq to other parts of the Middle East. They have had numerous interactions. One pilot actually said that this was a daily occurrence when he was in Iraq, when he was, well, not in it, but stationed supporting the operations in Iraq. It was a daily occurrence, and you didn't hear about it. So now what? All of a sudden, there's a Chinese spy balloon, and a week later, in the very same rough area of the country, there happens to be all of these UFOs, and we're not ruling out aliens? Come on. All right. Yes, I've personally witnessed what I believe to be a UFO rose about 1 point from 21 to 22. No, but I know someone who sincerely believes it stayed at 20. Well, actually, that went up 2 points, went up to 22%, up from 20 in 2021. And let's look, intelligent life in the universe. Did that go up? So yes, in belief in intelligent life in the universe was 59% in 2021, and now it was 62.4 in 2022. And again, that's why I'm talking about this, because these reports will have an impact on people's beliefs. Even my son came home from school and was like, "Dad, they shot a UFO down." The people will hear it and they will believe it. Of course, you have to sit your kid down and say, "Son, there's something called a false flag." All right. 14.6% say no, they don't believe there's intelligent life in the universe. 23 are unsure. And whether or not the U.S. government has knowledge of UFOs that they're not sharing with the American people skyrocketed from 62% to 69.2. All right, so that's a pretty significant increase over the course of a year. So people clearly have been, and I would say especially since 2018, because in 2018, let's see, in March of, April. It's April. The 18 survey was conducted in April. From the survey conducted in April, only 12% in that study said that they had personally witnessed a UFO, or what they believe to be a UFO. So since 18, post 18, I guess the release of the ATIP reports most definitely had an impact. So you can see how the media, bringing this issue out of a issue with a lot of, that has a stigma attached to it, folks. I mean, I've talked to people who said that they believed there were like too many Christians in the Pentagon to have this conversation, and that's why it was, had a stigma on it. I'm talking about a military person who said this, and I just think that's totally ridiculous. It's how we discuss things and talk about things, and it's up to our elected leaders whether or not they're going to make a priority out of an issue. M-Ban is on a roll today, man. He said, I heard they ran out of false flags after sending them all to Ukraine. They must have ramped up production. Maybe Seymour Hersh has a source inside. That's funny stuff. You're on a roll today, man. You're on a roll. All right. Anyway, yeah, so I don't want to spend too much time on this. I would just simply be, very, very, very skeptical that this is anything but an attempt to distract you. I saw it, Laura. I'll read it to them in a second. That's funny too. But I think this is an attempt to distract you away from the myriad problems that are facing us, and also what it could even really truly be. So Biden was widely viewed to have been, he totally botched, he bungled, the handling of the spy balloon. They lied, they got caught in a lie. Even the head of NORAD, said the White House is lying, about whether or not there were spy balloons during the Trump administration. And immediately President Trump said, that's ridiculous. If I was told about a spy balloon, I would have blown it out of the damn sky. You had all, people who served the National Security Council and elsewhere say that this is not true. We did not detect this stuff. And if we did, we would have blown it up. And then eventually NORAD has to come out and say they're full of crap. Like, Kirby is a liar. Nothing that this man says can be taken at face value. He's the one who lied to you about the threat to ISIS, along with Austin, who is now the head of the Department of Defense. So if you're wondering why all of a sudden the Department of Defense is being so open-minded about this issue, remember that it's being run by people who engineered the political reaction, the widespread lie to protect Barack Obama over ISIS. They dummied down intelligence reports. They watered them down. They dismissed the threat so Barack Obama's approval rating could stay in a fairly decent territory. President Biden was widely viewed to have been weak on this. Now, all of a sudden, we're getting UFOs all over Lake Huron. I mean, come on. Does anyone seriously believe this? And it's sad because I do see people who have been real advocates of disclosure. Some of them have like shows on the History Channel jumping all over this. Come on. You're going to hurt your credibility doing that. And not to mention, you frankly should know better. All right, before we have Liz on, and again, I think I got did you put it on locals, Laura? Could you do that? You done did it already? All right, let me give locals the link. She done did it. All right, there it is. Okay, let me join the chat, and I'll send you guys that link because it was an interesting survey. Oh, you got it for them? Oops. Okay. Sorry about that. She got it already. But there it is again, in case you missed it or just joined. Yeah, I know the way she posted it is not the way I usually do. I gave you guys more time. Are you there? You want to say something?
Don't tell me how to do my job, SA.
All right. Got yelled at on live. All right. Let's see. Where are we going next? Oh, right. To tee up, before we have Liz Harrington come on, I want to talk about what the FBI did last week and what they supposedly say they found. All right. So this is Forbes running on running on MSN. It's like the Bing version of Google News. All right. Let me drink a glass of water before I read this. It was book club yesterday. If you guys missed the book club, man, we had more people. We did. We had more people. For the size of the locals community, I'm like always so shocked. Maybe it's the time that it was run on. We were missing one of our regulars because of the Super Bowl. I didn't even know there was a black national anthem. Did you guys? I frankly didn't know that. You cannot have a nation if you do this kind of crap. There is only one national anthem. You cannot have a nation if you balkanize people like this. Read a friggin' book. Benedict Anderson, Imagine Communities. Look it up. I know, isn't that like, in Laura, what Laura's saying, isn't that like inherently racist? To have two national anthems because black people need their own national anthem? It's anti-American as hell, I'll tell you that. All right, let me get a real quick drink of water. We'll read through this real quick. What a load of crap. I'm just reading the first thing, and I'm like, well, Rich, this was agreed upon. But they don't need to be there. And if you think they're really just looking for classified documents, you were born like yesterday. Speaking of which, speaking of annual tracking that we do with our polling, trust in the FBI. I believe that is up, right, Laura? It's February, so it's got to be pretty darn close. Maybe it goes with the UFO one. Let me actually look. Is it in that survey, folks, the trust in? No. Biggest threat, greatest enemy to the U.S. was, though, real quick before we bring that up. I remember China stayed at the highest, but Russia like shot up from 20% to, almost a third said Russia. 43% said China. Almost a third said Russia. Why? Democrats. There was an increased number of independents who said Russia, but it wasn't that much. Third-party voters, only 19% said Russia. Only 27% said Russia of independents. But about half of Democrats said that which one of the following nations would you consider to be the single greatest enemy of the United States? Meaning, which poses the greatest threat? Half of Democrats said Russia. That compares to only 21% of Republicans. 60% of Republicans said China. Only 24% of Democrats said China. 44% of independents said China, like true non-party affiliated, and 36% of third-party voters said China. North Korea, Democrats cited North Korea more than anyone else, although it's really like 12 versus 10%. 10% of Republicans cited North Korea. About right on the money. One person more Republican, but still 2.4%. Cited Iran. Democrats, 2.4%. Overall, though, 2.8%, because independents were more likely than both parties to say that Iran was the greatest threat. Independents were the most likely, and actually third-party voters were the most likely, to say there's none. There is no threat to the United States. That's why I love my job. It's like statistics, but I got to ask yourself, like, who are these people? Do you really think we're going to be here forever? I bet you the Romans thought that too. FBI finds additional classified document at Mike Pence's homes, reports say. This is Forbes regurgitating. The FBI found one additional classified document during a search of former Vice President Mike Pence's Indiana home Friday in cooperation with Pence's legal team, multiple news outlets reported. Just weeks after several classified records were found at the Pence residence, following searches at President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump's private residences. Let's go down to the key facts thing. I have actually read an article in the New York Times that say, both are bad, but here's why Trump's is worse. Trump was a president. It's his decision what is and what is not classified. This is so crystal clear. I'm not even a lawyer, but you don't have to be to read black and white. A bureaucrat at the Department of Justice or the crooked-ass FBI does not decide what is and what isn't appropriate for the president to have and keep. He is the classifier, period. If it was classified and he had it at his house, he could just say, that's declassified, up yours. Why? Because the president is the boss of the executive branch. Nobody stands above him. Not Christopher Wray, not Robert Mueller, not Jim Comey, not anybody. They are not independent. They are not separate from. They are subservient. That is the design in this government. This idea that there's some kind of independent agency is a lie. It's a modern fabrication. It doesn't exist. It's not legal. The president can declassify whatever he wants. When Joe Biden had classified information at his residence, he took it as the vice president. He is not the ultimate arbiter of what is and what is not classified. This is a nothing burger when it comes to former President Trump, as it was a nothing burger for Barack Obama. Be consistent, folks. If Obama had stuff he should not have had, that is tough for everyone who doesn't like it. Because he's the one who tells you what he shouldn't and should not have. Hillary Clinton. That was not appropriate nor legal. She was a Secretary of State. And she had it on a private unsecured server anyway. In the bathroom or in the bathroom closet. Wasn't it like the bidet closet or something? God, I'm sorry if I gave any of you visions of Hillary Clinton in a bidet. I apologize. This is ridiculous. Key facts: Pence advisor Devin O'Malley told the Associated Press the Department of Justice completed a, quote, unrestricted search of 5 hours and removed one document with classified markings and 6 additional pages without such markings. Why? Why did you remove those pages? Why? Is that what you agreed to go there for? No, that's the crooked ass FBI doing what it always does. I had to dig deep into the archive. I'm not sure Liz or even President Trump has ever heard of this, but I am going to go back to an article in People's Pundit Daily that cites Don Smith from the Don Smith Show. You remember Don, everyone. At the time when he interviewed the then frontrunner, and it was a newly changed status. Trump had just taken the lead in the presidential nomination polls when he obviously won the nomination for the 16 nomination. And when he had taken the lead, Don Smith has him on the show, and he has him in a tape session for the show that was going to air Saturday. So it's a closed circuit. It's a closed system. There is no way for what happens with like you and I. Sometimes you hear people talking on the other end, right? That doesn't happen in this setting. So it couldn't have been on Don's end. It was on President Trump's end. So I'm telling you, they were looking at this guy when he became the front runner, because that's what the crooked ass FBI does. They look for things to extort people. Why did they remove anything but the document they said they were there to take? It's unbelievable. Pence is currently on the West Coast. Stay there. Stay there. All right. For reaction, we're going to go ahead and move on. It's just, I wanted to bring that up because I told you they would take other stuff. I told you on Friday they were going to take other stuff. All right. The hell with Mike Pence. Let's bring on Liz Harrington, the spokesperson for President Donald Trump. I'm thank her for coming on. Liz, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you making the time to come by. How are you today?
Hey, I'm great, Rich. How are you?
Living the dream as always, Liz, living the dream. Can I get your reaction to this? Like, what they did this to President Trump as well. They just, and I understand Mike Pence allowed them to come and do this, and this was predetermined, but they took documents that did not have classified markings on them. Because why?
Well, exactly. It's just like they took, President Trump's passports and medical records and God knows what else, what they were digging around in Melania's closet. I mean, this is an out of control deep state run amok. It really is. And President Trump has been clear, like, leave Mike Pence alone. This is so out of control. But I mean, when we're come on to talk about like the hearings last week, I think what's so important is not that we just look back at what happened in 2020. Obviously, there needs to be accountability. They meddled and helped rig and steal the 2020 election, but they're also doing it right now as we speak for 2024. I mean, make no mistake, they're leaking again to the New York Times with this corrupt special prosecutor, doing a wide fishing expedition once again against an innocent man, President Trump. And this is out of control. They're doing it to meddle in our politics. They want to decide who leads the United States of America. And that is unacceptable. That is not a constitutional republic anymore if that's the case.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. So if the FBI or any administrative agency, any bureaucracy feels like they get to have a say, and we've read this in Peter Strzok's text messages, they have this mindset. I'm going to prevent him from winning, so not if I can help it. Will Donald John Trump be president of the United States? Like, who the hell do these people think they are?
We will stop it. Right. Direct quote. I mean, exactly. Who do they think they are? They think that they rule the country and that the people don't matter. And they actually have nothing but disdain for the people. There were so many texts in there as well. You're so right, Rich.
Yeah. So I want to show you something. I'm not sure you ever saw this. Many people haven't. At the time, during the interview, Don Smith he interviewed then frontrunner Donald Trump in the nomination for 16. He had just taken the lead in the polls. That's how early this was. And he had taken it to me because something had happened during the phone call, and President Trump jokes about it. I want to play it for you so you can hear it. He jokes about it because nobody really knew this at the time until Devin Nunes walked into that skiff and said, look, this had been happening long before anybody previously thought. But this is what, the real question is, what do we do about this? Because this was them listening. Liz, we brought this to Ed Henry, then at Fox News. He took it around to people. He gave it to, his sources. Is this what we think this is? And it was unanimous. And on this recording that I'm going to play, Don Smith is talking to General Paul Vallely, who wrote like the book on information warfare, and to get his opinion. You can hear, I wish I had the whole thing, but I don't have access to Don's masters. It's the audio that I had for the report we did on it. But you hear this static, but if you listen to the master of it and live, if you would have been listening live, and Don has it, he's played it before, you can hear people talking. Worse, when President Trump makes a remark, you can hear people basically say, oh, like start to, get nervous that people can actually hear on the other end that there's interference. It's crazy, Liz. Listen to this. I want to get your take on this, okay? And it is old. This was, it was in November of 2015. It was right after the president took the lead in the nomination polls, which he never gave up, as we know. The rest is history. But here he is talking, and then I'm going to let it play so Don can explain a little bit after he stops it.
Have it for ourselves, and we have excess capacity that we can sell. And, we're a huge seller of coal to China, if you think about it. So we can't use coal, but China can. And China's using it in a very unfortunate way. So we are, whoops, you have a buzzer going off there, Don, but that's okay. Did you hear that buzzer?
I heard it in the background. Yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, something going off, but that's okay. I don't know if it's your phone or mine, but that's okay. Regardless, it just makes the conversation more interesting. Maybe that's the Chinese calling, asking us to stop talking about it.
So there you go. That was the clip. Now, before that, when it was live, General, it was so much more pronounced. And again, you could hear actually soft breathing in the background. You could even hear at one point, I hear a soft conversation between two people. And I'm going, what in the heck is going on here? And then he notices it. Did I just play proof of what's going on?
There it is. All right. And I know it's hard to make out, especially here, but he's right, because I heard it live. I was listening. Of course, he was amped. He had the front runner for the show booked to come on the show, and he was super stoked. And he had a great interview. By the way, that's one of the best interviews I've ever seen with President Trump. He was so it was policy. And at the time, you had all these people, and, no offense to him, but actually, I don't care if I offend them. Like people like Hannity. It was just like serious. And that was a really serious conversation that did a lot for people. It was great. I mean, that was the president almost at his best. But he hears it, Liz. And at the time, when he mentions it, people are like whispering back and forth to each other, like, oh my God, did they hear us? Like it's way before the genesis of the Russia investigation. Like, no wonder they can't stop attacks at Pulse nightclub. They're too busy on like climbing outside the telephone pole outside of Trump Tower.
Exactly. And this is why they freaked out so much. Remember when he said they had my wires tapped at Trump Tower? I mean, all hell broke loose because he said something that I think was so true. And it'll still yet to be proven. Like, I mean, we know that they spied. Obviously, that's been proven. But the extent of it and the extent that they're probably still doing it, which is another thing that's so remarkable, Rich, because this man has been under, unlawful, illegitimate investigation. He's had everything looked at. He's probably had every phone call ever. And he just assumes so, right? He assumes that's the case, that's people are listening in. But this man has been spied on. He's been looked at, and they have nothing. They've never had anything because he is so clean. I mean, he's not, that's why they had such a problem with him. And that's why they still to this day have such a problem with him, because they're used to being able to have some sort of leverage over everybody in Washington. It doesn't matter who they are. There's going to be something. They'll find it. They'll use it against you. They can't do that against President Donald J. Trump. That's why they have to make it up. That's why they have to hire Russians to come up with a dirty dossier that's full of lies, because there's nothing wrong. He has done nothing wrong. He built a great business. He loves the country. I mean, in that interview, just like you mentioned, we only heard a snippet of it. I'd love to go back and listen to the whole thing, like you said. He's been so consistent on these issues. He cares. He wants to hold China accountable. He wants the American people to succeed. He wants our economy to be great. All these different things that are just common sense. He's an open book. And that's what they must be so frustrated, because I was reading this sham New York Times article, right, about Jack Smith, the war prosecutor, right? They try to make it nefarious, like, oh, this is the type of guy they need to come after President Trump. And he's hired the same like cast of characters who've gone after Roger Stone, who've gone after Steve Bannon, these left-wing hacks. They must be so frustrated because they've spent their lives on this, and yet they still have really nothing.
And so many of these people, they either are them or they're friends with like Preet, all the same cast and crew of people. These are people who let Bernie Madoff just, Ponzi scheme for years. And then right. JP Morgan, they were all in on it. If all JP Morgan ever had to do, Liz, was look at the balance of the account, and those people would never have been robbed. They let them off scot-free and then touted it as like a victory when they announced that they've deferred charges and they have to pay a fine, which is nothing but this is, again, they don't spend their time on, this is the question, the ultimate question, because maybe people think I go a little bit too far, but I just don't see the need for them. I just don't. What do we do about this? And what would the president do about this in another term? What would we be able to expect? Because look, the FBI is not chasing John Dillinger anymore. They're not. If you read Rand Paul's report, they didn't stop a single terror attack using all these, abuses of the FISA court. Nothing.
And when's the last time they have, right? When's the last time they've actually legitimately caught someone that they didn't themselves just set up in a sting operation? Honestly, it's just kind of like the TSA, right? It's been around all these years since 9/11. They've never caught a single terrorist, to my knowledge.
No, they haven't.
It's the same thing. But it's worse because they're so out of control. And each day that goes by without accountability, they're going to get worse, because why wouldn't they? And they think they're gods. They think that they can do whatever they want. They have all the power. They think they run Washington. When I saw Merrick Garland announce the special counsel for Joe Biden, which was such a sham, my only thought was, this is the deep state flexing its muscle. This is the deep state saying, you know what, we run things. And we could go after you for real, legit stuff that's on the laptop from hell or anything else. But no, we're going to go after classified documents, right? Just to show everyone who's really running things. And that's what my takeaway was. It's like, how many presidential elections, not that I necessarily think Joe Biden's going to be their nominee this time, but how many times, how many presidential cycles are we going to have when both candidates are under investigation? I mean, it's really ridiculous. And I agree with you. I don't think you can fix something this rotten, that's this corrupt. And really, honestly, you can't. I mean, corruption, it keeps going. There's not something that you can really do to reverse it. You have to just put something new in its place. And I think that would be the solution. I really do hope that these congressional committees get really smart and go really hard for accountability and coming up with real solutions, because as it stands, this is unsustainable. It's going to get worse. It's not a question of if they'll meddle in the 2024 election. They already are. They've meddled in the past successive elections. It's not sustainable. And the American people will not have a functioning republic left if something's not done about it.
Last time we polled this, we polled trust and confidence in different agencies every year, once a year. 19, I think it was 18 or 19% in the last poll we did had a great deal of trust in the FBI. That's it.
Right.
So I'm not sure they're even a bureau, an agency that would be missed. And you said something that really is true. They always look for dirt on these people. This is why nothing changes, because sadly, a lot of people, they find it most all the time, right? It's really something to behold how this man has been under investigation more than I think anybody in the history of this country has ever been pursued by, federal prosecutors, the FBI, and they found nothing. Folks, there are not many of us out there who could say if a federal prosecutor went through your life with a fine-tooth comb, they'll just, or make something up, find something that they can twist and obscure to make something up. And they haven't even been able to do that. I imagine the president's happy with these hearings, right? I mean, the Republicans are, I got to be honest, I have to be the first to admit, they're surprising me, actually, with their level of, I don't know, maybe the basic specs post, anyone who wants to run for anything after President Trump won the election in 2016, you have to fight. You're just expected to fight. Maybe that's part of what's going on here, but I didn't think they would do this. Elise Stefanik was, I got clips here. We ran them on Friday. She was incredible. I mean,
Excellent.
She what, right? And I imagine he's got to be happy with this, right?
Absolutely. And he absolutely wants them to keep pursuing it and keep shining the light on it. I mean, the best thing that we can do, even if, we can't get the most accountability we'd like to see now, is to get the sunlight on it, get the American people to see it. And Anna Paulina Luna had a very good, strong exchange proving how illegal this was, the collusion between the government and big tech, clear violations of our First Amendment rights. And Clay Higgins said, you need to be worried about, lawyering up. There has to be accountability. So I hope they keep pursuing that. The president's very pleased. They need to, and they need to shine light on more, because this is just the tip of the iceberg too. We focus on Twitter so much because it's such a, the favorite of the DC, establishment. Right. It controls so much of the conversation, unfortunately, but it's so much bigger than that. I mean, Facebook, all YouTube, Google, the control of information that they're still doing, the deplatforming, what you never see when you put something through the search engine, stuff like that. It's so dangerous to our constitutional republic. It really is. And all of these things need to end. And so the president is very much looking forward to these hearings, looking forward to accountability, and looking forward to them holding the feet to the fire of these corrupt companies and the corrupt government agencies. Because make no mistake, I mean, these people are just doing the bidding for the federal government. And that's why it's so dangerous.
Yeah, so I got this from several social social platforms. Twitter was first. So, but speaking of which, but you're right, it's the favorite of the DC class journalists. So that's why it really is so key. It's so important. But
Right.
yeah, the president's supporters gobble up this policy stuff that he's been releasing. And one of the number one questions I got was, where's it going to go next? So is it going to be something additional on trade, or what's he going to talk about next here with some of these policy releases he's put out are detailed? Their policies.
They've been incredible, and we're going to go everywhere. He's really has such a vision. I mean, we saw it in the first term. No one has, tackled these important issues like he has. He just released the most latest one on energy policy and comparing to how, I mean, right now we have a China first energy policy, and that's how dangerous it is. What we've done to cripple our energy independence gained under President Trump, and talking about how we can get energy dominance. But he's put out some really important ones on education. I think you'll see more on trade and national security with these threats now. I mean, what is going on, right? And this is so insane. I don't know if they're just trying to distract everybody now from the Chinese Communist Party and what's been going on there. But I mean, we need to really have a strong message laid out of what we're going to return to under President Trump. And everyone knows you could not mess with the United States when he was commander in chief. We had a real commander in chief. So I think you're going to be hearing more about that. Again, a lot of substance, which people, the media always lies about President Trump. This is the most substantive guy. He has a grasp on every single issue that's facing our country and our world. And he knows what to do, and he approaches it with common sense, which I think is just so important. The American people are crying out for it again. The world is crying out for it again, because we see just how dangerous and how terrible everything goes if we don't have that posture from the United States anymore.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things we talk a lot about here, and I wanted to ask you about Ukraine and what his take was with that whole situation, because they created this like Russia phobia in this country under his administration. And we do this book club on Sundays at 3 p.m. for locals, and we're reading John Mearsheimer, Tragedy, Great Power, Politics, and he's been really critical. I think he would applaud, the stance President Trump took. He was probably the first foreign policy realist president in our lifetime. And you look at how India rolled the red carpet out for this president. Yeah. They loved him. I have a friend who's a journalist in India, and he said he never saw anything like it. But now India doesn't know where to go. They don't know what to do. So over this Russia fear, Liz, they've created, it's aggression. I mean, the aggression they've shown in Eastern Europe, they're pushing all of these guys in a coalition against us. China, India, Russia, whereas it was a very different approach from President Trump. He would not have blown up Nord Stream. He would have made Nord Stream irrelevant. He would have just given them Germany cheap U.S. gas. And he's talking about that in that interview with Don Smith. He's saying, this is what I'm going to do. And in fact, he did it. And now, because Joe Biden reversed all of that, we have these issues in Europe. I mean, what's his take on this? I imagine it's, if they wouldn't have undid some of this stuff I did during my administration, we wouldn't be here.
Oh, exactly. And everyone knows that this would not be happening if President Trump were in the White House, and it clearly wouldn't be. I mean, you didn't have Russia. I mean, they weren't doing anything to threaten any of their neighbors or the United States or anybody, because there was actually a healthy respect again. Because they knew, they knew they could not mess with the United States with President Trump at the helm. And I mean, this administration, this regime, I like to call it, they've invited this aggression. They practically told Russia to invade. I mean, they've almost wanted it to happen. I mean, it's sick what they're doing. And now they're pouring billions upon billions. Now they're sending tanks. And as President Trump says, first come the tanks, then come the nukes. I mean, this is so needless, this escalation. And when all this time, all these years, you're so right to point out, it's been Russia, 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 when Russia can be handled. I mean, President Trump handled them. But no one's talking about the CCP. No one's talking about China. No one's talking about real threats,
Right.
threats to our country, threats to freedom around the world. And it's because all of their interests are tied so heavily. All of their moneyed interests are tied so heavily with the Chinese Communist Party. And now all their moneyed interests, a lot of it, they're tied to Ukraine. And so it's all about their own self-interest. It's not about the country. It's not about the people of Ukraine. It's not about anything else. It's about corruption, and it has to stop. And President Trump laid it out in the kickoff weekend in New Hampshire and South Carolina. He had 2 amazing speeches where he talked about this. We could negotiate this if you were serious, if you wanted peace, you could negotiate it within 24 hours. I could do it. And we know he could, and he would. But you got to be in the White House. You got to have that position representing the United States. And our leaders right now, they have no interest in doing that. They want to keep this going. They want to drag it out after the disgrace of what they did in Afghanistan, which also connects back to China, right? They basically gave Bagram to China. What they did, leaving dead Americans, leaving Americans behind, leaving $85 billion worth of equipment. They do not care about the people of Afghanistan, just like they do not care about the people of Ukraine. And now they've got another war that they can just pour in all of this money and funnel it to God knows where. It's really a disgrace, and it's back to business as usual, which, again, just like the FBI, it's unsustainable. Rich, we cannot keep doing this. I mean, we're going to collapse the dollar. I mean, we've already given away all our energy independence for no reason. We've weakened our economy with inflation. We have no border. All of these issues, President Trump sees it, and it makes him sick, because it doesn't have to be this way. It wasn't this way under his first term, and it won't be this way under his second.
It was so much of this was just so avoidable. None of it was inevitable. And that is that I often think too about North Korea. Where would be right now with North Korea, right? Something, just a totally different situation. But it does trace back to money, Liz, because in November, Xi Jinping just cleaned house, got rid of all these dissenters who aren't in favor of him really trying to meet us on par with tech, which runs hand in hand with the military. Who's going to profit from all this?
Exactly.
Right? Mitch McConnell and the Biden family, they're all going to have their hand in that cookie jar, and they're just literally willing to sell us out.
Exactly. Same thing with the energy, right? The windmills all made in China, which are so bad actually for the environment. They're so bad for the people who live around them. I mean, it is, they're an eyesore. They're bad for real estate and all the rest. They kill the birds, but they're good for China. I mean, I love when President Trump talks about this, because it's just one of those things that you see, and it's just so, stupid on its face. Like any normal person with common sense would say, of course we don't want this unreliable energy that doesn't even work, right? That you can never depend on. And then it's so obvious that why they're actually pushing it is because they're going to get rich off of it. China's going to get rich off of it, but the American people are going to get sold out once again. And so it's the same type of thing. And they've done this over and over and over. They don't care about the environment. They don't care. In fact, emissions went down under President Trump. They hate nuclear energy, right? Which is great for the environment and for carbon emissions. And they claim to be so fixated on, but they're not. They want a new globalist world order. I mean, that's what they want. They don't want America to be free and strong. It gets in the way. Sovereign, free people always get in the way of these people's agenda who just want to get rich, or they just want power and control. And you can't have that when you have a strong, free America. And that's what you have under President Trump. And that's why they really can't stand him, because he is not on board with that. He's the only one, really, who has taken it to the people of Davos. He's the only one who's taken it to these globalists and said, no, not on my watch. We're going to remain a free America. Thank you. And that's what we were, and that's what we got to get back to again.
he pulled out of the Paris Accords. It was like the sky was going to fall. You remember that? I mean, it was it was hysteria, wall-to-wall coverage, hysterical coverage. And at the end of the day, we outperformed anyway. And if these fossil fuels are so bad, then why do you feel the need to start World War III over Eastern Ukraine? They're so full of crap, Liz. The shale.
Oh, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, the shale deposits have nothing to do with that. Come on, get out of here.
Exactly.
Well, Liz, thanks for joining us. I hope you come back. It was great. It's a great conversation. I hope you come back.
It's so good to be with you. It's a great show, and let's do it again soon.
Sounds good, Liz. Thanks. All the best. See you on the trail.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks. Liz Harrington, spokesperson for Donald Trump. You know, how many times she said something I say a lot, which is a lot of this was just simply not inevitable. It didn't have to happen. These are self-created crises. These are demons of our own design. And it was this feeling, I got to do everything anti-Trump. If we didn't abandon his energy policy, then Germany would not be in the position it's in right now. And I actually meant to bring that up to her and I didn't. But also wall-to-wall coverage. Germany, you have to pay your fair share of NATO. You've been buck passing for years, and it's time to end that. And they were hysterical over it. He's going to destroy the NATO order. He's going to collapse NATO. Look at the threat to the alliance from destroying, and now being exposed, destroying Nord Stream 2. If you were Germany, folks, you'd be pissed. You'd be really pissed. They need that gas. They wouldn't have needed it if they would have gotten it from us, which was Trump's plan. Man, it's unbelievable. Why would you have NATO members reliant on what you are constantly calling an enemy's main export? This is dumb. But they have no other choice but to go to Russia and others because we're not there for them anymore. Their economy needs it. And again, they're so full of crap. If it was really about anti-fossil fuels because of the environment, then they wouldn't care that Putin now is in control of eastern Ukraine, where most of the shale deposits are. Oh, by the way, speaking of which, Elon Musk gave the Ukrainians something called Starlink when the war started. All right. And apparently a lot of its assets have been destroyed now. And we have some of Zelensky's like top commanders on record saying that if he didn't do that, it basically would have went dark on us. Communications would have broken down. Logistics would have broken down. The war would have been over within hours. So it would have been over. We would not have been able, the left hand would not know what the right hand's doing. We would not be able to communicate with each other effectively to be able to wage some kind of a resistance. And now they just want, I guess, what, an endless supply? And Elon Musk is resisting. And for that, he went from being the savior of Ukraine to now, and he wants to negotiate peace. Like former President Trump said, this could be done in hours if you really wanted to negotiate a peace deal, because Zelensky has openly made statements that he'd be willing to accept most of Putin's demands, which are not crazy demands, especially if a nation commits that much and he hasn't committed as much as he could, but he already has made a significant commitment. So of course he's going to want to get a return out of it. War is risky. You know, the idea of making that decision to wage war is absolutely risky. I mean, and when nation states do it, they want it to pay off. Unless, of course, you're the United States and you're dumb and you invade countries like Iraq for no reason and do nothing with their assets. You just get bloodlet, spill all blood and treasure for nothing. Unbelievable. Yep. And there's a lot of comments about, and I saw that, Laura, a lot of comments about that, you know, if there was something to find, they certainly would have found it. Believe me, a real estate developer from New York City, you know, I'll be honest with you, I would have thought 6 years ago, I would have thought they would have found something by now, or at least made something up that was obscuring the facts about something. They haven't been able to do it, and that speaks volumes to me. It does, because even good people do make accidents, sometimes, and whether it's especially, this wealthy guy, it's not exactly like going to TurboTax, folks, and filing your taxes. Like, that's not how it works. And yet there hasn't been any issue, and that should tell you something. It tells you something like when people are, when parents are divorced in the 80s and the father gets the kids, like there's something wrong with mom. That's the message you should be getting from something like that. Yeah. Joel, I actually see your comment about how you could easily cripple the U.S. military. I don't want to share that, publicly, but yeah, it is a big deal that they let that spy balloon go across the United States like that. We weren't sure about what its so-called increased capability was. I mean, you could have been subject to an AMP, folks. We could be in the dark right now. Why would they do that? I don't know, because we're weak and crooked, and they wouldn't, expect, a legitimate response. And by the way, let me, before we go to our break here, YouTube, here you go. You should not hit the paywall for this, but I know there's a metered paywall on the site, but you won't hit it right away. But if you go and check that out, maybe I'll ask Don if he still has the master. I'm sure he does. But there is the link to Rumble and also to Locals. You'll get it. You can listen for yourself. We took that tape to a lot of different people in intelligence contacts. Everybody who heard that, the entirety of it, said that was without a doubt some kind of surveillance interference. So that's November of 2015. This is what the FBI does. I don't see the purpose of them anymore. I just don't. Joe Kent was 100% right when we had him on after the U.S. withdrew from Afghanistan. They always need an enemy. The FBI has a very long history of making Americans enemies. And that's where we are right now. Amanda, I didn't have time. This Ohio story, I suspect there's a lot more going on there. Amanda said the Ohio Chernobyl is scary. I would say this. I just didn't have time to really look into it enough to feel confident enough about talking about it today. But for those who don't know, it would appear that we basically poison people. I mean, if you live anywhere near that area, because I was looking at a map this morning of how far some of these chemicals, and they are harmful. There are apparently reports of livestock and fish dying. If I lived anywhere near that area, I would go to the doctor, and I would basically get a clean bill of health right now. So you have, if God forbid something happens to you, and get your family to do the same, friends and family to do the same. If God forbid something happens to you in the future, you will have the records that are needed to draw a connection, a nexus, what's called a medical nexus between that event and whatever harm may have been done to you. I have, it is a cover-up, Amanda. It does look like a cover-up. And some of those chemicals, I don't want to get into it right now, but some of those chemicals that were released are used in a wide range of stuff, everything from illicit drug trade to, I don't, God knows. I mean, you really could speculate, and I don't want to do that, but I will say this. I had a friend who was in the military. Something very similar happened to him on orders. He was meant to do this. He was told to do something, what looks like a similar kind of event, and he was harmed badly by it. But some of that stuff did not pop up until like 20 years later. So in the end, he got it. He got compensation for it, but only because in the military, you're so frequently examined if you're going from one post to another. So he was able to establish a medical nexus. And by the way, he's not the only one. And what they did hurt people who were stationed in and around that area. So it had already been known that some of these symptoms were caused by what the military did. And yeah, I would just say if it was me and Matthew, another one, I would get a term life policy. I would, if you don't have one already. And I would most, without a doubt, I mean, some of this stuff, yeah, the chlorine gas. I mean, it's actually, I'll tell you, hold on one second. I will get you some of them that were put out. There was a list, and yeah. Ooh, there's a video of it. You want to see a video of it? Okay. Yeah, hang on one second. I don't want to make. Okay, so this is what appears to be someone's video. Ooh, that's pretty interesting. But you can see the clouds that are coming out of this, and it's ugly looking. But there is one. Hold on. I was looking for a local news report, and give me a second. Aha! Give me 1 second. I'm gonna get it, and we'll talk. We'll talk about it. And by the way, I believe in this video they suggest doing exactly what I just said, which is go to the doctor and get this taken care of. This is ABC 33 WYTV. All right, so it's local news. Let's check it out. Okay, you don't need me on here. Let's listen to her. All right, and he says we basically nuked. All right, he does, and there was a lot of stuff going around the internet saying they nuked these things. He says we basically nuked. All right, so just keep that in mind.
We now know 3 more chemicals that were on board the Norfolk Southern train that derailed here in East Palestine just over a week ago. And we're being told that some of those chemicals are dangerous.
We basically nuked a town with chemicals so we could get a railroad open.
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency sent a letter to Norfolk Southern stating that ethylene glycol monobutyl ether, ethylexyl-acrylate, and isobutylene were also in the rail cars that were derailed, breached, or on fire. Caggiano says ethylexyl-acrylate is especially worrisome. He says it's a carcinogen, and contact with it can cause burning and irritation in the skin and eyes. Breathing it in can irritate the nose, throat, and cause coughing and shortness of breath. Isobutylene is also known to cause dizziness and drowsiness when inhaled.
I was kind of surprised that when they quickly told the people they can go back home, but then said if they feel like they want their homes tested, they can have them tested. I would have far rather they did all the testing.
Caggiano says it's possible some of these chemicals could still be present in homes and on objects until you clean them thoroughly.
There's a lot of what ifs, and we're going to be looking at this thing 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line and wondering, gee, cancer clusters could pop up, well water could go bad.
Caggiano recommends anyone who's in the East Palestine area get a health checkup. He says get a record of where your health stands now so that moving forward, you have documentation of any possibly related effects to the train derailment.
Okay, so very serious, obviously. More so are no, I don't know if it's more so, but there are also reports that people attempting to look into this are running into issues that they shouldn't be running into. I mean, journalists. This is what the EPA is for, and there's been a lot of criticism on them that they, have failed miserably here. There's a lot of different. There's the cargo manifest of the train shows a lot of, and this is something I can't really confirm. So not yet. Oh, I can. I just haven't yet. And if that's the case, they're just telling you about these 3. They're highlighting these 3 chemicals. There could be a lot more to it. You know what? I got to put this comment up. It's a super chat, and so, like someone said on Twitter, this would be a presidency-ending scandal in a sane world. This is immediately what I thought of. IWD. Imagine if this was George Bush or Donald Trump, right? This would be unbelievably bad for them. Unbelievably bad. I mean, look at, for instance, Katrina. I mean, it's hurricanes. President Trump had a hurricane in Puerto Rico. They tried to bury him in. This is not good. Yeah, and the animal reports are really concerning. I mean, if you have fish 50 miles away dropping dead and bubbling to the surface of water, if that's legit, you have a serious problem. And nobody's talking about it. I mean, this is basically a blackout. It's crazy to me. It is crazy to me. But there's a lot of other stuff in this, and it's so small, I don't want to get into reading it, but there's a lot of other stuff in this manifest, and some of these but not some of them. These are controlled. You can't get, like, you can't go to a store and get them. You can't walk into a Lowe's and get them. Some of them are for changing the molecular structure of certain of certain alkaloids into more potent versions of themselves. It's crazy. It's crazy. You know, John, do they know what caused the derailment? I don't know that anyone can really say that for sure yet. It's incredible to me that there's such a lack of information or credible information on this. To me, it's nuts. It's just nuts. Mississippi River. I mean, God, it goes that. Alex Stein 99 said, the massive explosion and poisoning of American citizens should be a much bigger story. Why isn't the media talking about Ohio more? I mean, great question. You have the Ohio River there. It's like the third largest river in the U.S. It goes directly into the Mississippi. This is a big deal. And people are talking about UFOs. And where the hell is Pete Buttigieg? Why hasn't he made a statement about this yet? This guy is totally useless. This is like normally a post that's somewhat, and I don't want to say inconsequential because that's not really true. It's not inconsequential. It's just, it's a quiet job, right? It's not something that makes headlines all the time. And yet, under this administration, we've had massive problems with supply lines, import and export delays, massive lines of freighters and you know, which carry containers of goods. The railroad is a big deal. And when you're looking at the interior of a country, railroad is a major deal. Again, just to cite tragedy of great power politics, railroads have a major impact on a nation's power, how mobility of the nation. This is huge. It's huge. And the fact nobody's talking about it is why I'm trying to be so careful here. And Spline said the railroad lobby is powerful. Absolutely. Very. And has been for a long time. But the EPA, you know, runs around the country suing people over puddles in their backyard. You know, I mean, if you have like an oil streak in a puddle in your driveway, you could be in trouble in a certain area. They're not remotely concerned about this. 80s Erin, the book club is 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the Zoom link goes out on locals before, but I usually tweet it. I usually tweet the Zoom link before, like I did last time. It'll look like this. Here, I'll show you. But yeah, this is just crazy to me. And IWD, this is why I brought this up when we were talking with Liz Harrington, because this is a good example of why anyone who makes for the White House needs to promise to gut the federal bureaucracy. These kinds of decisions are only made by pencil pushers who think they're feudal lords. It is like, and we were talking about that at the book club yesterday too. It's turning into like something akin of a feudal system. If China was to get its way, we turn into like a global feudal system where they essentially, or it's something that's like a cross between a feudal system and the mafia, where they create the threat and then promise not to hurt you as long as you pay homage to them, right? So as long as they get their kickback. This is essentially the way these agencies run now, and the regulators don't do their jobs at all. Why? Because eventually they may want to be part of those agencies or industries, and they pay a lot more than when they had their time in the federal government. So they can then go from being a regulator of an agency or an industry, whatever, to someone who now works for those industries because they have the experience of dealing with or being a regulator. For instance, some of the most effective, I'll even use an example of a company. And this isn't a dirty example. It's just, well, it kind of is, actually. So this company in Florida started a couple of years ago, and it became the fastest growing company in Florida that year. It was called Vet Comp and Pen, all right, meaning compensation and pension benefits. And what made it so attractive to vets, they hired them. They said, we will handle your veteran compensation, to all of these people who are getting denied by the VA. Why? Because they were VA claim rater. They were VA claim experts and raters. So then they left the VA knowing exactly what scam the VA runs on vets who are trying to get their benefits. So when if you get them to put your claim together, you will magically get approved. It's not magic. They know the scam. So they know how they can tie up every loose end to make sure that claim agent who is doing, whether it's an initial or what's called now a de novo review or an appeal, they are looking for A, B, C, D, E down the list, examples of in the claim that's at fault, something the claim did at fault, where they could say, aha, I'm going to deny it based on this. They have their laundry list of ways to deny claims. And if you don't know that list, then you're not going to be able to do it. Anyway, this company became, and it's a good company. They are helping a lot of people. They became huge and were fair. I'm arguing they were fair. I don't exactly remember what it was, but hell, I even hired them. I did, because I was lucky enough. If you're a vet and you live in Florida, believe me, you're going to have other vet friends and you're going to talk. And when somebody goes, hey, what's your rating? What's wrong with you? Everyone used to look at me and be like, what? Because I just never fought for it. I didn't care. I just moved on with my life. And when I did, I was denied. Anyway, I was very lucky to know someone who knew the woman who started the company. So that's how. But anyway, they exploded with growth because they figured out a way to create a business model based on an agency's corruption. So these regulators, and we brought up Bernie Madoff the other day, and today again, like Preet Bharara, whatever his name is, one of the perfect examples of this, like playing musical chairs to go after Donald Trump, or this U.S. attorney and his friends, and that U.S. attorney and his friends. This is a man who let Bernie Madoff conduct his Ponzi scheme for years. This is a man who let JP Morgan go, even though they were absolutely complicit. I mean, a $1 billion fine is to avoid criminal penalty is nothing for JP Morgan. Nothing. That's like asking you for $2. Like, it's nothing. And in any event, none of that would have ever happened if there wasn't this cozy little corrupt relationship. Why? Because the SEC, who did they ask for advice all the time? Bernie Sanders. They would go Bernie Madoff, excuse me. They would go to Bernie Madoff all the time when they had an issue or they thought something was not on the up and up. I mean, he was a point man for them. Think about that. So I'm with Liz. I don't think there is reforming the FBI. So just like there's really not a whole lot we can do with some of these other agencies, which IWF brought up. It should be a litmus test is basically what they're saying. If you want to run for president, that should be a litmus test. Where do you stand on these useless, powerful bureaucracies that are not fulfilling their charter or their mission? They're gone. They're so far away from their founding charters and their mission statements that what's the point anymore? With the FBI, I don't think I got to this clip with Elise Stefanik. I don't think I got to it on Friday, but you talk about election meddling. They meddled with election. Liz is 100% correct. If you have any agency, any government or administrative state picking the winners and losers of elections and handicapping the game, then you're not a democracy. You are a cartelized system. You're what Jack Snyder called a cartelized system. You are run by a bunch of lords, and at any given time, it's a coalition of lords who may have come together in some greater interest. Also, we'll come together and form a coalition, a ruling coalition, because we have similar interests at this point. And those coalitions shift over time when the interests or needs of the individual members of the coalition or groups, individual groups, also change. And there's a word he used for that in Mists of Empire. But what he means to say, what the word is inferring, is that these are very tenuous alliances, and they change quite a bit over time. Iron and Rye is a great example of one of these coalitions. Iron and Rye, right? The marriage of iron and rye. History buffs will know what I'm talking about. That stayed for the time being. But nevertheless, Germany, Japan, these were not democracies. They were cartelized systems. That is what we are run by right now, unless we do something about it. And you have, whatever you want to call it, the deep state, the administrative state, in an alliance with big tech and the media. It's like media entertainment, social media is part of that, big tech in general, and these agencies within the federal bureaucracy. And they are running the show. If anything, you learn anything from the Trump administration, that's what you should have learned, is that really the people are not in charge. We're not. We're supposed to be. We have the power to be. We just haven't exercised it. And you take that to mean what you think I mean, but that's what I'm saying. We haven't done all we could do. And because we haven't, and there's been so much compliance, a cartel runs the show now. And that's sad, but it's true. And what about elected officials, Rich? We hold elections. Liz said it pretty damn good. I know, and I can name him right now. A perfect example of a freshman congressman. The FBI has a lot of dirt on him. They investigated him, found he was bribing. He's guilty of bribery, among other things. They're holding it over his head. And the minute John goes to vote some way they don't like, they're going to remind him about that bribery that they found out about. That's sad, because that's why nothing ever changes. All right, I don't know that I got to run this clip. There were two rather big clips that I had taken on Friday to run from at least Stefanik. If I did run it, then I apologize, but I'm not sure I did, and I want to let Elise Stefanik do the talking here.
Because this is not just about the Twitter files, which folks are focused on because of the news it made. It's about a systemic rot in the culture and the politicization of the leadership of the FBI, and it needs to be rooted out. Let's take a step back. Let's look at the targeting illegally of parents who wanted to stand up for their kids at school board meetings. On September 29th, 2021, the National School Boards Association sent a letter to Joe Biden equating parents at school board meetings to domestic terrorists. And on October 4th, Attorney General Merrick Garland issued a memorandum to the FBI and U.S. attorneys that the department would use federal enforcement tools to target and prosecute these parents. Do you consider parents as domestic terrorists?
I do not consider parents as domestic terrorists. No, I do not.
No, and neither do the American people. But there's more to this story. It goes back further than that initial letter on September 29th. Because the letter didn't happen organically, it was solicited. It was solicited by the White House and by the Secretary of Education. Essentially, the Biden administration laid the predicate for which it used to justify illegally targeting the American people, targeting these parents.
And do you remember, it's important, context matters. Do you remember the media and their role that they played when a father was dragged out of a school board meeting in Loudoun County, right? And all of these other ones. These people were literally labeled extremists. The media talked about them as if they were extremists. And at the end of the day, they were playing their role in the cartel, right? So this is what I mean by that. But actually, that it reminded me playing that clip that there was another one, and I'm not going to play it. It's like a minute and 30 seconds long. But she goes on to basically say that at its core, this is a corrupt agency. So that leaves the question then, can you reform something that corrupt? I don't think you can. Miss Parker is there because she is just a long list, just the latest, one of the latest on a very long list of people who have been drummed out of these bureaucracies for figuring out something that you and I have known for a long time, which is that the FBI are not the good guys. This is a political, crooked bureaucracy. And you'll be cut loose in a second to protect that. And that's what happened to her. And she was in tears in her opening statement. Tears. Some of these people get there and they're like, you know what? I just want to be a G-man or a woman, G-woman. I am so proud to go work for the FBI. We knew someone who quit when Jim Comey went on his own, took the unprecedented action of calling a press conference without any U.S. attorneys weighing in, without U.S. attorneys at the podium to let Hillary Clinton go. I know somebody who walked out that day and never came back. They were like, that's it. That's the final straw. I'm done. So if these people are, if the good people, Sean Hannity's rank and file, right? If the good rank and file seem obviously ineffective at affecting change from the inside, then what can be done? What else are we supposed to do? Is the next president, because Joe Biden's not going to do it, they got too much on him. They got his son with underage Russian girls. It's over. Chinese girls. It's over. The next president, what are they supposed to do? Get a special counsel or some sort of special counsel to root out corruption in the FBI? Look at what happened with the Durham investigation. By all accounts, John Durham was like the deep state killer. He was viewed as the deep state killer. He couldn't get a single conviction. He didn't even have the testicular fortitude to charge people with the actual crimes they committed. He was reduced to crappy process crime prosecutions against people like Sussman, who were let go by what is essentially another part of the cartel, the jury pool in D.C. Any population that's 96.4 imbalanced, it's not exactly going to be able to offer some kind of fair accounting or fair review of the facts. People aren't built to be that kind of hive-mindy. So anytime you see something like that, it's a serious problem. Yeah, the only way, it's like you need like a bureaucratic exorcism, Laura, right? Like, or just exercise it, meaning get rid of it. Just completely get rid of it and replace it with something else that has a much limited charter. And I'm not even for, I frankly wouldn't even care if somebody if they were gone and nothing replaced it. And local law enforcement is very capable of doing what it can do. Seymour Hersh, for crying out loud, I mean, very detailed report about Nord Stream we went over. The CIA is constantly violating their charter, and cannot operate within the United States. Why do we need these people? We have sheriff's departments and police departments, and Our founders were all about elected sheriffs. I mean, it was elected magistrates, not appointed by the governor. This is crazy. I just don't see the point. I mean, if you guys, I'd love to hear if somebody wants to, play devil's advocate here. I mean, I would challenge you to give me one example of when we needed the FBI. Liz brought up TSA. What the hell is the point of the TSA? Deterrence? Because they haven't caught anybody. There was a world without the TSA once. You hopped on a plane back in the day like you hopped on a bus. There are entire generations now who just don't know what it's like to live without a Department of Homeland Security. It's tragic. Because as generations go on, things move on. Unfortunately, what happens is that people start to get used to it. You know what I mean? They get used to it. All right. Let's see. I think I'll take my... Yeah, I think I'll take my... We'll do a break. We're over on the break time. So we'll take a real quick break. All right. This is, if you were watching on Friday, then you know. And actually, we had Drew Bourne on to talk about the stuff that's going on in Michigan. And he actually knew them. This is a company absolutely run by patriots, people who stood up against the COVID regime, I don't know what else to call it. But as you know, there's always a price to pay when that happens, right? So anyway, I'm a big coffee lover. I think most people know that. And what I love about this company is, and you get what you want to get. I'm a dark roast kind of guy myself, but I love a good medium roast. And I really appreciate the art of roasting coffee beans because it is in fact an art. And I will tell you folks that there are some people who are great at it. There are some people who are just kind of good at it. And then there are artists. And this is an artist of a coffee roaster. All right. So the medium roast, which you can see right there, the little purple K-pot, if you're a K-pop person like me, and I am at a convenience. What's interesting, and I actually didn't know this until I had to do some research on it, and they got me started on it. The fact is, there really are no medium roast K-pods. It's a load of crap. It's a giant scam. If you get it from Starbucks right now at the grocery store, if you were to bust them open, you're just going to see like a little wafer in it and a little less darker roast coffee. There's a science behind it. Don't want to have to get in the weeds, but the bottom line is it doesn't taste like a medium-bodied roast, and that's because it's not at Jam and Bean. If you go to jamandbean.com, the link's in the description. Check it out. Use the promo code TPP for the People's Pundit. Keep it nice and simple. TPP, and you'll get 10% off. They are also all natural. Their popcorn is fantastic. I'm not even a big fan of caramel popcorn, and caramel corn was delicious. My favorite, the cheddar is good too, but my favorite was the buffalo. I love stuff like that. But yeah, absolutely delicious. Laura, that's right. The sour cream and chives, if like flavors like that, those are all great examples of how they use natural products but the taste is so real. I don't know how else to put it. It's a real taste. You will know that it was made with real ingredients, and you will not regret it. So check it out, jamandbean.com. That's JAMN bean.com. Bust open, folks, a bag of Starbucks and look at those nasty, over-roasted, dehydrated beans. They're disgusting. All right? Absolutely disgusting. I'm just be the first one. I hate to burst everybody's bubble if you love your local barista, but Starbucks is garbage coffee. So check out Jam and Bean. All right? jambean.com. And let's just move forward here because it's 1:36. Let's get her done. All right. This is of course Field of Greens. Pick your flavor. I'm a lemon lime guy. Laura's a berry guy, and you can a berry girl, and you can actually see they have non-flavored as well, which you can easily just throw in something like a Body Armor or a Powerade, Gatorade, what have you. All right. We've been here. We've done it. We've gone through all of these like fad diets. But the truth of the matter is, you need 5 servings of healthy fruits and vegetables each day. And we just don't get it as Americans. Even if you prepare 3 squares and you do a good job with balanced meals, it's unfortunate, but it's true. You just won't get there. All right. This is a science-backed formula. I can all go into it, but it's junk science. That's what the doctor called many of those fruit and vegetable supplements that we had looked at prior, because they use extracts of common produce department fruits and vegetables that have really few health benefits. I take Field of Greens because it's the whole organic fruit and vegetable, not a watered down supplement. And it is backed by that better health promise I've told you about. Each ingredient in Field of Greens was scientifically chosen to support vital organs like your heart, lungs, kidney health. Others support my immune system, blood pressure, metabolism, and healthy weight loss, which is a big deal for me. I don't eat as healthy as I should, although I try, but that's why I take Field of Greens. Like me, you probably look and feel healthier fast and have way more energy. But your best proof will be at your next checkup when your doctor says whatever you're doing, it's working. Keep it up. And let me get you started with 15% off. Visit fieldofgreens.com. Use the promo code TPP. That's promo code TPP at fieldofgreens.com and get started on. Speaking of which, Laura, I haven't had my Field of Greens today, and I'm actually kind of craving it. Not kind of, I'm craving it. Katie says Field of Greens berry. She loves it. Yeah. And Derek, if you check out Jam and Bean, I got the bags up here too. They have bags, they have Cape Pods. It's just what was so cool about Jam and Bean is that I do use Cape Pods because of convenience. And if I don't have to, well, then a press or, something like that is my go-to. Because I do like, getting a roasted bean. It's nothing like it. A well-roasted bean. Grinding them up and throwing them in there. So yeah, they do both. All right. And Danielle says, get those greens. I'm telling you, got to get those greens. You will, everyone's experience is different, but like me, I know you will notice a difference quickly. No extracts. It is the actual fruit and vegetable, which is the big difference. The big difference. Oh man, I'm looking at some of this woke stuff. Just trying to go back before we took the break, that last segment. Norm says, Rich, we ran out of town. The principals in 2 of the schools here for this woke crap. I'm telling you, our town had a meltdown after January 6th because the superintendent, who is not representative of the town, and I think like your town, our town came to realize in 2020 and shortly after, you know what, this local stuff is pretty important. And I'm looking at the school board. I don't agree with what they're doing. They don't agree with my views. We don't have the same views. I mean, the truth of the matter is, folks, you could basically look at some of these people and see whether or not they represent you, your community. Like if there's some yuppie and you live in a working class area, then chances are they're not going to hold the same views as you. And vice versa, right? So government is supposed to be representative. And Norm, like you, and I see you got to go. I'll see you soon, Norm. But like Norm and others, I think a lot of these towns kind of woke up recently, but at least they're doing it. And they're realizing now this is not what I want for my kids and my school board. And this is not who I want to run the school, right? After January 6th, we're not idiots. We don't need the media to tell us what did or didn't happen at the Capitol on January 6th. The superintendent sent out this unbelievable thing about how President Trump basically committed treason and incited violence, which of course was total bull. Anyone who can read a Twitter timeline and if you're not too lazy, listen to the entire speech he gave that day. He said, don't be violent. Protest, use your, exercise your right to gather and protest, but do it peacefully. Our police officers are good people. They're just trying to do their job. Don't give them a hard time. And yet this woman, within, I don't know, Laura, wasn't even 24 hours, right? She trots out this email like she got David Brock's talking points from MSNBC before they did. But the truth of the matter is, she probably got the same talking points, because you can get signed up on the left. They're smart at messaging. You could sign up and get the daily talking points. That's why the media all sound the same, folks. They all do it. And anyway, the community lost it. That woman was gone that day. She tried to apologize and back down, but it didn't work. So she ultimately had to make plans to get rid of her and replace her, because she knew she was done. She was finished. School board members here have lost their seats. Is it official? Tim Scott's running? Is that official? Because, yeah, I mean, Tim Scott, I know he was thinking about getting in. I just don't. What they're trying to do is deny him. Yep, there it is. Another backstabber. Laura Loomis says, look, he's not really a backstabber, because I've warned you about Tim Scott before. I did a whole entire video on Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham a while ago. And the truth is, Tim Scott wanted Donald Trump to lose in 2020. He thought that it would be the best thing for the party. His rationale, and how do I know this? He was in my friend's living room saying it. These people understand donors care actually what I think, and they don't want to waste their money. So they call me and they say, Rich, like, is this worth my money? I mean, it really is that simple. And then they tell me what these politicians say behind your back. And they're not going to stop. We have value for each other. Tim Scott's argument was that Donald Trump was going to destroy the brand, the Republican brand, among brown and black people for a generation. Meanwhile, Donald Trump did the best of any Republican presidential candidate among minorities since Richard Nixon. That's what I'm saying. And did the most for them, right? Because, Laura, all those jobs reports and wage gains, the truth be told, that was not disproportionately falling on white working class at all. And people like Ryan Gradusky used to lament it. You remember? Big jobs reports, skyrocketing labor force participation, wages the highest since before the Great Recession. We could never recoup real wage growth. The Bureau of Economic Analysis revised 2 years under Barack Obama. They were lying to you for almost 2 years. The first 18 months of Trump's, and actually, man, we should try to find that article. I have that. And here, hold on one second. Let me send that article that we were talking about. Let's see. If I just type in real wage, it may come up in the search results. I don't want to say the number until I confirmed it. But in the first, I want to say 16 months, it was like 90%. It was so unbelievably better than the 8 years under Barack Obama. I wonder, I can't remember what the title of this was. I'll know it when I see it. I'll have to look at it and get back to you on this, because it was in a huge story, and yet hardly anybody talked about it. Wages beat fueled by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, by the way. Here's the article from the CBO, Laura, when they revised their budget projections. Oops, we were wrong about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. In fact, it's not only not adding to debt and deficit spending, but it's helping to offset the cost of Social Security and Medicare and defense spending. It's unbelievable. If you just put wage in the search thing on People's Pundit Daily, because we were just data journalism. I mean, what's a record? That's a headline. So, of course, we're always going to report the number, but if there was records set, it's everywhere from that administration, everywhere. Consumer confidence, consumer sentiment, personal income and outlays, The moment wages started to make solid gains, January 2018, wages starting to make solid gains. And I think, honestly, this may be it. Let me just briefly see, because, folks, it's something ridiculous. The real wage growth, like I think it was Norma said it or somebody else said it, but real wage growth was huge, just huge. Yeah, this isn't it. Remind me, I'm going to look for this. Let me sign in so I don't hit the paywall, but oh no, I'm signed in. Massive difference between the first 2 years of the Trump administration and the 8 years prior under Barack Obama and Joe Biden. It's just unbelievable difference. I really wish I could find that for you. I want to say it was something like 90% stronger gains or something. It was not a big story. I don't know why, but it wasn't. Yeah, we have some plans, honestly, to go back to some of this. I don't want to dedicate too much time and resources to it because, you know, James O'Keefe, who is now the victim of a coup in his own business that he started, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have known what had happened. And we had a good relationship with Google. But once they blacklisted us on Google News, that was, you know, that was about it. Yeah, appointed by Nikki Haley, who probably will also run. I got to say this because I know we're running out of time. The reason you're going to see people run, like Mike DeWine maybe, and that's probably going to happen, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, they're trying to do a greater version of the strategy that they tried to cobble together last minute in 2016's nomination. It was Mitt Romney's idea, and that was find people who are the strongest in each state to try to deny Trump that state. They know they can't beat him in South Carolina with the usual suspects. In fact, I could pull up a poll I actually know can pull South Carolina, right? All right, which would be Haley still. I know he had some misses in Trafalgar, had some misses in the states, and pretty bad ones. But I don't think because of, you know, a screw up in, for instance, New York, which, by the way, he still showed you New York was a lot closer than a lot of people thought. 4 points is not 16 points, right? But he thought that Zeldin had pulled ahead slightly, and I think there was good reason for that. I think many of you in the comment section would probably say a little something like, Lee Zeldin was ahead. But yeah, here's Trump 43.4, DeSantis 27.8, Tim Scott 14.3, Nikki Haley 11.6, Mike Pence 1.8, Mike Pompeo 1.1. And let's actually take a look real quick at the demographics of this poll. Hold on, because the poll that came out from, I don't know, I can't even remember it, honestly, and that's saying something. But it was way too young and way too educated. And believe me, the Republican primary electorate in South Carolina is not going to be 26%, 27% post-grad. It's not going to be another 20-something% 4 year and then 2-year degree this month. It was crazy. It was insane. Working class was paltry. It was like 15%. No wonder DeSantis had a 3-point lead. That's not going to happen, okay? That is not what an electorate looks like in South Carolina. Come on, don't make me go somewhere else. Okay, so here's the report. I don't know how much they released in this report, so we're just going to have to see. But this is what they're trying to do because they know they're going to have a very hard time. It's pretty big size. By the way, this is only likely presidential primary voters. The other poll was a poll of 600 and change overall, and only 300 were Republican primary voters. Well, no wonder you got such an educated sample. They're always the first ones to take surveys. So if your sample is too small, like that is not a sufficient sample for South Carolina or really any other damn state. Utah, maybe. All right, if the Republican presidential primary were held today, the following candidates would, who would you most likely vote for? We all know that. We know that deal. Oh, wow. Look, if you take out Tim Scott, he's still up there. See, he just has and DeSantis only went up about a point, right? Yeah, that's it. Oof, that's bad. So, it's bad for non-Trump people. If you remove Tim Scott, it doesn't go to anybody that has a chance in hell. So Nikki Haley gets most of Tim Scott's support. Pence gets bumped from 1.8. He gets 2 points of it. Trump gets almost nothing, a tenth of a percentage point or something. Statistically insignificant. He went down a tenth. And DeSantis gets about a little less than 2 points. This is not looking good for non-Trump people. I mean, it's a long, 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 long ways away. You take DeSantis out of that equation and Trump crushes them. Crushes them. I wonder if you take DeSantis out, did they do that and get rid of, no, they didn't. If you take DeSantis out and get rid of one of, yeah, they did. Yeah, Trump goes to 52. They can't beat this guy in South Carolina, I'm telling you. Folks, last time, and why? Because Horry County combined with the Western conservative counties, good luck. Good friggin' luck. That's all I got to say. Things can change, but right now, you're just going to get the stomped out of you, and you're going to look so bad. It is not a winner-take-all state. Donald Trump won so overwhelmingly last time in this state that he made it a winner-take-all state. He became the first to cream up all 50 delegates. Why? He won every single county. Good luck. That's all I got to say. Good luck. Let's look at the ages. Yes, this is more like a Republican primary electorate. It is. Does he have... He's just got race. You know what? There is a growing Hispanic population in South Carolina. If Trump can get these urban Hispanic and Black working class voters to a Republican primary, nobody's going to have right numbers. Nobody's going to. Because after digging and digging and digging, this is why Trump was so far ahead of other Republican candidates in our polling in 2022. That's why he would be up 10, 11 points in Georgia, but, Walker and Warnock be locked in a tight race, even though we did have Walker up by 2. And for the first round, we did not poll the second round. It was because he did so much better than Walker in urban Georgia. Same thing, ditto Nevada. The reason why he was so much ahead of Lombardo is because he did much better than Lombardo and Laxalt in Clark County. Where were they coming from? Hispanic working class voters who said, I'm not voting for a Republican for Senate or governor, but I'll vote for Trump for president. And by the way, I didn't vote for Trump last time. So that's a kind of a secret weapon he has if he harnesses it. And it's 52% female, 40% men. Yeah, that's close. That's defendable. It's definitely defendable. So yeah, I mean, again, I don't have an update with Abe. Let me see if I can look through my email right now, and I'll look on his thing. He was asking a court to simply count the provisional ballots. Looks like he caught Maricopa County. The Arizona Republic said Maricopa County was a threat to democracy. They changed their headline to control a narrative. This article came out after the election, and they just recently changed it. Same story, different narrative. They wanted the court to just count people that hadn't been counted. They're totally legal ballots. This is why they were slow walking the recount. It's why they were slow walking the recount, because you can't, there's an order in which you have to do these things, and we'll see. Yeah, he shared just 39 minutes ago. He shared that. That was something I just showed them. I said, what are you talking about? A court in Berlin, because somebody said this never happens. And I actually sent it in a group thing. I was like, a court in Berlin just ordered a new election. This happens in Western countries all the time. It has happened. I don't know where these people come up with this stuff. It's so frustrating. Laura and I, a judge a couple of years ago in a neighboring county, ordered an entirely new congressional election. Because why? It looked like Republicans were committing absentee ballot fraud or something. Or at least they had somebody say they were. And that's a big deal, because that raises the bar is raised on election challenges like this. So you have to not only say, yeah, Maricopa botched it, they did it on purpose. That's the difference. Yeah, where are we going around here? I do think DeSantis probably is gearing up. And I'll tell you, you better hope something changes, because whoever is telling him to do this, and I know who it is, it's McConnell. I mean, it's the Ryan group, and you know, McCarthy, Ryan, Team McCarthy and Ryan, and he's so young. If he does this, and Trump is absolutely just not going to stand back, he's going to, again, these voters in Iowa, in these states that Trump has made so red, I don't think they're red. I don't. Youngstown will recoil by DeSantis, by looking at DeSantis's fundraising Rolodex. They will vomit. And I'm telling you, there's a reason Barack Obama carried Iowa twice. There's a reason why Donald Trump then carried it twice. It doesn't necessarily mean that a Republican can go in there and just clean up like Trump did. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. It's risky. And you're so young. Why would you do that? I just don't understand it. But they're filling his head with crap. I do understand. Look, all politicians have big egos. It was always this ridiculous line, like Trump is an egomaniac. Politicians are egomaniacs. They all have what Laura calls Messiah syndrome, especially on the right. They have to be the ones to fix it. They have to be the ones to save the world. The party's in peril. The country's in peril. Only I can fix it. And you get bit by the presidential bug, man. I've seen it. It's a fever. You ever see The Hobbit? The desolation of Smog and the battle of the five armies. They warn about, what do they call it, Laura? Dragon fever or something? All the kings under the mountain see that gold and they go mad with it. They get dragon fever. Joe Biden's had it since the 80s. Hillary Clinton's got it. They all have it. And you have to be an egomaniac to want to run for president. He will ruin his career if he loses, and he's very likely to lose, because Trump is going to lay out for everyone in the Iowa caucus how he takes money from lots of money, millions, from Harry Reid's best friend. How he takes money from all those hedge fund people who said that they're going to forsake the Republican Party forever because of Trump's, quote, Muslim ban. Remain in Mexico also cost Donald Trump the support of one of these other billionaires who now back Ron DeSantis. What the hell was wrong with Remain in Mexico? Nothing. What was wrong is that Trump actually tried to do what he told people he was going to do. Secure the border. Stop the flow of illegal immigration. That's what happened. And I'm telling you that it's risky, and I don't want to see DeSantis get destroyed over it. I don't. But again, you get bit by the bug, man. They do. Find out what they call that. And you guys, nobody watches this? Come on. Yeah. Somebody's got to know this. Come on. What's his name gets it? The dwarf that returns to the mountain. Thorin Oakenshield. Come on, you guys know. You've seen The Hobbit, no doubt. Stop playing. You've seen The Hobbit. Come on. Nobody knows in locals either. Come on, you know it. It's called like dragon fever or dragon disease. And they go, man, it's just like all about Getter. Nobody knows on Getter. Come on, Getter. You know. Somebody knows. Come on. Nobody. If they do know, they don't seem to think. Yeah, they text Tim Scott is a hell of a fundraiser. And once they get your list, him and Lindsey Graham, man, you'll get binged 80 times a day, Mason. 80 times a day. I mean, it's unbelievable. Phone, texts, emails. And by the way, Lindsey Graham was in on that crap. He was right there too. He totally agreed with it. He totally agreed with them. And the problem with Tim Scott's argument is it was wrong. So had Trump chased away all of these minorities, then you could say, okay, the man made a valid point. But he didn't. The party is less white than ever. Gold madness. Thank you, IWD. Or dragon sickness. Somebody else said gold madness. Isn't it? Is it? Or dragon or gold sickness. Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks. That was driving me friggin' nuts. And that is basically what presidential candidates get. And if they lose, a lot of them have a very difficult time putting it down. So Hillary Clinton is all over the place. She's in India right now. It has been a bit of an open secret that Hillary Clinton is really jealous of Joe Biden. Because her and Barack Obama had a kinship that neither one of them had with Joe Biden. They look at Joe as an idiot. He is an idiot. Let's be honest. They think of him as somebody he's really not big enough for the presidency, and that he'll just be handled. And that, in fact, is the case. That happened. Barack Obama so reluctantly made those phone calls to get what's his name in South Carolina on board and to get the black vote out for Joe Biden, James Clyburn. He didn't like Joe Biden. He didn't want everybody knows that. And he didn't want Joe to be president. He didn't want him to be president in 2016. He didn't want him to be president now. But Bernie is not in their club. And Bernie was going to beat Joe Biden alone. Joe could not do it himself. Now, the irony of all of this is that Joe Biden and his team of, his little circle, Team Joe, they all now brag that they wrapped up the nomination faster than either Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? He brags that he basically won the nomination quicker and more decisively than either one of them did, when in fact, he would never have been the nominee if it wasn't for Barack Obama. Barack Obama made Joe Biden the nominee. The voters didn't want Joe Biden. Barack Obama didn't get his ass kicked in the first 3 contests. Unbelievable. Yet that's what happens when you do a favor for people. Hey, Barack, I just have to ask you, how hard is it to look in the mirror? I'm serious. How hard is it to look in the mirror these days? You have to go along with the charade that he won more votes than you. You have to go along with the charade that he did better with black voters than you did. He earned more, not that margin. He earned more black votes than you did, Barack. That must hurt so bad. You must look in the mirror and just, is the money enough? I know it ain't your wife giving you the satisfaction, so is it the money? Then again, you do get movie stars whenever you want, apparently, right? Scarlett and the rest of them. Kamala, I'm just wondering if that's enough to stop it when you look in the mirror from going, I'm not a man. I don't think it is. I don't think there's anything. No amount of pretty women, no amount of money, no amount of sycophant teams all over you. I don't think there's anything that could take that hurt away. Every time you look in the mirror, you have to realize that you go along with this crusty, simpleton, straight up senile, old white man getting more black votes than you. More votes than you. Woo! That's gotta hurt, man. It's gotta hurt. I hope you're controlling it I hope you really are the one pulling the strings back in it. Then maybe it'll be worth it. maybe. But I don't know, man. My God. Oh, 207. Had to go through it. See you guys on Wednesday, right? Pretty good of Liz to come by today. I want to thank our guest, Liz Harrington, for coming by. That was a great conversation. And we'll get more into this. All right. Yeah, I'm going to find that article. So people, Nick, I'm going to find that article and the rest of it. That wage growth difference, that's a big deal. We have to go over that. I've been saying this too, that I want to get back more into the economics too. I miss it. It's a passion. You know, I didn't only use, my, whatever you want to call it, my strength with numbers for polling. And it's still a passion of mine, but definitely think it's important to go over this stuff and have somebody put it in its proper context, because you're damn sure not going to have the media do it. All right, Wednesday, we will be back noon Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to share things far and wide. If you like the show, go ahead and give it a like. Subscribe on Rumble. Subscribe on YouTube. If you do on YouTube, don't forget to hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But encourage you to go on over to Rumble, hit that little plus sign. Then right below, you will see join now and check out peoplespundit.locals.com community, where we, for who was it again who asked, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday, unless there's a change. Sometimes we got to move it around a little bit for some people, but book club has been just fat. It's great. It's like 2-3 hours of reading and discussion. You don't have to participate. You can, and I encourage it if you didn't want to. You don't have to read, although there are myself and at least 2 others that read quite a bit, but you don't have to. All right. You will learn a lot. It is like taking a course. It's really cool, and we have a great time. So with that in mind, we'll see you back at noon Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers. All the best, folks. Deuces, right, Laura? Deuces. She's all right. You're not going to get there in time, sweetheart. I'll say it for you. Deuces.
How much you wanna up it, that I can get you back inside your head, before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit.